Attack of the show. Attack.
Hey, guess what? Something you've been doing all along with your cell phone is now legal. Ha! Sadly, it's not upskirting. It's all right. Here comes the loop. Jailbreaking your phone and switching to any other carrier, a criminal act just a few days ago, is now completely legal. The U.S. Copyright Office has announced historic changes to the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. These new rulings put the power back in the consumer's hands, giving you the ability to do what you want with the technology and media you own. So what's new? Well, in some cases, ripping DVDs and cracking copy-protected video games is now legal. But the most sweeping changes to the DMCA legalize the jailbreaking and unlocking of mobile phones. That means you now have the legal right to install unapproved third-party apps on your phone or switch to another provider. If you're looking for someone to thank for these new freedoms, look no further than the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They've been fighting for years with the U.S. Copyright Office and copyright holders to change the DMCA and preserve your right to hack the things you own. So how has the digital landscape changed? And what exactly are your new rights? We've got your Get Out of Jail Free card in the loop. Alrighty, joining me from San Francisco to help us make sense of it all, reporter for CNET, Erica Ogg is here. How are you, Erica?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I'm excited. Maybe I shouldn't be, because this is something that people were doing all along. They were jailbreaking their phones, putting whatever software they wanted onto them. But now it's just legal, right? I don't have to be worried about someone coming through my ceiling and handcuffing me and dragging me out of my house.
Probably no, you don't. It's now, you have an exemption. You as a consumer, if you have purchased your phone, it is legal for you to jailbreak it or basically break the encryption on it.
So I can break the software and then put whatever fart applications I want on my phone. Nobody can dictate which apps I can put on there.
If that's what you want, sure.
That's exactly what I want. It's what we all want, I think. What else are we legally allowed to do now because of this?
Well, depending on the phone that you have, if you want to unlock it and switch to a different carrier, if your phone allows that, once you've jailbroken it, you can do that.
Okay.
Certain phones, like say the iPhone, in the latest version, Apple's actually prevented you from even switching carriers now, even if you've jailbroken it. So if you have maybe a later version of the phone with software, I think past iOS 3.1, you won't be able to switch carriers even if you've jailbroken it.
So it's interesting. It's a win for consumers. Hey, you can do whatever you want as long as the hardware manufacturers don't continuously keep trying to lock you out with their software.
Right.
Okay. Well, why do you think the Copyright Office changed its mind on an issue, the issue here? I know it's like every 3 years they have to go back and sort of reevaluate the DMCA, correct?
Right. The way that they wrote that law in the beginning, they said that they were going to revisit it every 3 years. And so this is basically the 3-year period was up. And the EFF took this up as an issue. And they came up with enough reasons, clearly, to convince the Copyright Office that this is something that they should change.
Sure. And please, preach to the choir. Indulge us as to why the EFF was saying this shouldn't be allowed. You should be able to jailbreak your phone. What was their argument now that all of a sudden worked?
Well, I think what they're saying is, you own the phone. So you should be able to do what you want with it. You're not, ostensibly, you're not going to be, altering the software on your phone or, reselling it, which I think is not really included in the bounds of this new exemption. Basically, it's for your own personal use.
Right. But we have heard reports that some mobile retailers are offering to unlock the phones that they sell. Is that legal now, or is it one of those things like they have to hand me the phone, I have to leave the store, go to the alleyway, pull out a laptop like the movie Hackers, and then come back and...
I don't think it's really clear. I think it's really going to depend on how a judge would interpret it. There's a lot of leeway in this kind of stuff, and I know that it definitely talks about you specifically as a consumer can do it to your own phone. I don't think the law is as clear about, whether someone else can help you do it or whether someone can use their business to help you.
Interesting. Now, what about someone making a business out of selling unlocking software? Could that happen now? Could I see it on the shelf at Walmart, or should the entrepreneur in me not start the side business?
I would caution against that. I think it's kind of a murky area right now, but I would say that's probably not going to be included.
Really? Even though the software is now performing an act that is legal for the consumer to use, it still might be like that whole, like selling software to decrypt a DVD, it kind of held to the same standards there?
Yeah, I think it's sort of a legal, it's an intricacy about, the fact that it's your relationship, you to the phone, and not a business to your phone.
I'll let someone else try that out in the courts before I invest then. That's fine.
You probably should.
Who has the most to lose here, Erica? I mean, is it the handset manufacturers? Who's really going to be in trouble, or is anybody even going to be affected by this other than consumers who now don't have to worry about doing stuff like this?
Well, I think that's the thing. I think it's really largely symbolic that you yourself don't have to worry about it. I mean, I think practically the average consumer is probably not going to want to venture into jailbreaking their phone because it's really for the more technically savvy. And I know with certain manufacturers, like say Apple, if you jailbreak your phone, even now that it's legal, they say it voids your warranty. So if you take your phone back in, to get fixed, and they see you've jailbroken it, they're not going to fix it for you.
Right, right.
So you're kind of on your own at this point. So I think that the average person isn't really going to be doing this.
Right. Well, even if you touch it and it drops a call, they're still not going to do anything for you there, of course. But it seems like the conversation for the last 24 hours has been all about Apple. Whenever somebody brings up the story, they always say, like Apple. Is it just because they fought against this for so long, because they were fighting the jailbreakers for so long? Why is it?
I think that, and the fact that Apple's famous for being very particular about which carriers have its device, right? I mean, here in the U.S., we only have AT&T. In almost every other country, there's only one carrier. Some have more than one. But Apple likes to, their phrase is own and control their software and their hardware together. And that includes now, what carriers their hardware uses. So I think that because they exert so much control, I think that's why people have been focusing on them when it comes to this new ruling with the DMCA.
Right. So if you're Apple or any company that's potentially against this new exemption, you putting the tail between the legs and going quietly into the night, or are you already planning appeals and throwing a war chest of money at taking this down?
I would say that companies, and not just Apple, every consumer electronics company does their own form of lobbying. So I'm sure that's still going to continue behind the scenes.
But for the next 3 years, Erica, do you think for the next 3 years consumers are safe?
Oh, for the next 3 years, yes. In terms of it being illegal. Now, there are other legal avenues beyond the DMCA that people can pursue. If you break your end user agreement, it could be a breach of contract issue. There's other legal tools they have for coming at you, but in terms of the DMCA, yes, it's now legal. So
it's a sliver of light, but consumers aren't exactly blinded at this point by the sheer brightness of these exemptions.
Exactly.
All right, well, that's good to know at the very least. Erica Ogg from CNET, thank you so much for joining us and keeping us in the loop. We appreciate your time. And tomorrow we will bring you part 2 of the conversation to talk about your new rights that cover things like cracking software, ripping DVDs, and of course, making those sweet video mashups that you tweens love to do.